As we get older, there's this phenomenon that time passes quicker than it does when we were younger. I thought about this and thought nothing of it because I'm still a 20-year-old bum who makes YouTube videos in his room. But an anime coming out this season, Frieren Beyond Journey's End, talks about the passage of time in regards to an elf's lifespan. I'm going to connect the dots and theorize how we can learn from Frieren's mistakes and new ventures in relation to our fickle lifespans and how we spend our time on this earth. I'll be analyzing the anime and reading a ton of research papers on the physics and emotional connection of this idea. So if you like the sound of that, stick around and you might learn something. Frieren follows an elf after she has defeated the demon lord with her adventuring party. The story takes place in the years after this, once the passing of her party members has started. I might have just explained most of the first episode in just 2 sentences, but that is genuinely how Frieren must have experienced it. Like the ice cream truck that passed by your house last week. It was in your neighborhood, parked there for 5 minutes, and then drove off. It's as fleeting as the time spent scrolling on TikTok. An elf's lifespan is an unimaginable amount of time. If any normal human had that much time, we wouldn't know what to do with ourselves. I'd probably spend a couple hundred of them straight playing video games in this day and age, because that's the amount of time that elves have to burn on whatever fixation they may have. I wouldn't recommend doing this for something like games, because I've spent 2 whole months of my life playing Rocket League, and Lord knows I need help from the PTSD I have from toxic meat brains playing the game that psychoanalyzed me. Anyhow, the way that time passes for elves in fantasy worlds might not be as different as we once thought. It seemed like such a fantastical concept to me at first, like I was the human who first discovered that you can milk a cow. But the more I think about it, Frieren is more similar to us than other fantasy settings might make it out to be. Elves are seen as wisdom-filled creatures with lots of practical and by-the-books knowledge because of their long lifespan spent nurturing this intelligence. But Frieren gives off a different energy than that. She's a grown-up as far as elf years go, but like many of us who are young adults and have gone into the grown-up world, I think she is as immature despite the thousands of years she has on us. You can see this by the lessons she is still learning at the beginning of the anime, realizing the importance of connection in one's life and how it can influence the significance of the time you spent during a certain window of years is something we all experience. We have all had those special relationships, and once we have lost them, we realize what it was that we let slip through our fingers. It's more concrete in Frieren's example because that person is gone. I think in order to understand why these things are, we have to familiarize the lifespan of an elf to the lifespan of a human and correlate how our passage of time is the same despite the differences in our life force. This seems like we'll need some fucking calculus and statistics and shit to make sense of it, but let's just theorize. Let's not bust our butts over something that we probably know nothing about. Let's just say Frieren is about a few thousand years old because Flame, her master, was her teacher and she is described as a great mage from ancient times. Adding in the fact her journey with her party members, a whole 10 years, was not even close to 100th of her total life, gives us an idea of just how long 100th of her total life might be. Let's say that 100th of her total life is 150 years, seeing as Frieren is still likely a young adult in appearance, so at present she is in her early 20s. What's important here is the reference to human years, not the exact number of years she is, so don't comment below saying how I'm a dumbass and should go back to high school, please. High school wasn't fun for anyone. She's in her early 20s, and this would make what happens in the anime make sense. Frieren has many flaws that one would imagine you could iron out in the span of the thousands of years she's been alive. While the literal passage of time might be prolonged by a universe, there is a relation to how elves see their early years and how us humans see our early years. We're not thinking about fixing our flaws and getting rid of them. We just want to explore and do what we want to do without consequence, which is a flaw in itself. Frieren faces the consequences of her tactless actions when she thought she didn't care in the slightest. She is still learning and growing a lot in this period of her life, and that's the same for lots of us in our 20s. We aren't sucking on our thumbs anymore, neither are we paying for a house up front like some of our grandparents might have done. Nothing is that cheap anymore anyways. Look at fucking McDonald's, they killed the dollar menu. We are developing to this day, and that isn't any different from Frieren. She wants to learn more about humans and what it means to develop a meaningful connection between herself and others. That's a whole different video I want to make about that concept, and if you want to see that, make sure to like this video. It'll let me know that's something that people do want to see. Another concept that peeks its head around the corner is the passage of time and how fast it may appear to us. A key facet of Frieren experiencing the passing of her party members is that she departs and says goodbye to them for 50 years to go on another journey of her own. She does so many things during this time, and it goes by in a flash. To put into perspective, I could have been in high school, she would have left, and hopefully, if I were worked a good job, I could have been retired by the time she returned. It is exactly what happens when Frieren returns to go see our party members. One of them is an old man who has seen what he has wanted to, kept up with everyone he had wanted to keep safe, and he was living peacefully until the day that Frieren came back to see him. It's very saddening to see in the moment, but Frieren doesn't yet realize that Himmel is in his last years of his life. She just calls him old and bald. The mortality of life isn't what I wanted to tackle, but the passing of time that goes by in a flash. Something passed you up because you weren't caught up in the moment necessarily, and your eyes rolled back into your head. A common sentiment we share as humans is that time flies when you're having fun. It's an idiom that simplifies how we see the passage of time in our past, and it says a lot about how we might view our present. In the paper writing about the passage of time and the common conception that time speeds up as we get older, time pressure is a term used to describe how we perceive the passing of time during a current period in our lives or a past period in our lives. Oftentimes, when we look at our past, we underestimate the amount of time pressure that we experience in our past. This makes us feel like we experience time faster in the present than we do in the past. It scales up by the amount of time you look into the past, not necessarily by how old you are. So whether or not we're talking about humans or elves here, we all experience time pressure in the same way. Himmel, Heider, and Eisen all look back on their time during the 10-year adventuring journey, and it was an endeavor filled with interesting days and fulfilling moments that made those years so important to them. Another paper that I read said that time chunking is a method through which we remember our past, and the more individualized we make events in our memory, the slower and more meaningful the past will seem to us. This idea of memory chunking may not have been a thing that Frieren might have seen as important. Of course, she still does something like this because that's how the brain works and how she reminisces about times she spent with Himmel, but Frieren's chunking of time has to be in chunks that are a lot larger than humans chunk their time because of the longevity of their lives. Chunking mattered more when people looked back at the past year, but for an elf that would be kind of an idiotic question to ask. That's like asking humans to chunk the past 3 days together, and you'd probably get a mix of get up, work, eat, shit, sleep, repeat. It's an accurate representation of an average day. Don't blame me that I'm right. These two concepts combined together with the fact that elves have an extensive lifespan can explain how someone like Frieren can spend 50 years of her life on an adventure and think nothing of the people around her when she comes back to visit them. There's also the natural trait of hers that she is very self-centered, and so trying to think back on the memories of her and her adventuring party didn't strike a sense of nostalgia in her and wasn't something that she often thought about. Time pressure is affected by her messed up sense of time, and chunking may be another factor that plays into this. I believe in the fact that time pressure was something that she didn't worry about, so time pressure wasn't a factor in determining the time frame through which the past had occurred to her. I know that what I'm saying might sound like gibberish, like I'm speaking in moon runes, but I'll leave the research journals that I read on in the description of this video in case you are interested more in what I am talking about and want to explore it for yourself. In summary, the events that happened in between those 10 years of adventuring had many distinct features, but for Frieren, her warped sense of lifespan and time made them feel like a lot less with the memory technique of chunking. That's why she was so taken aback and cried during the burial of Himmel the hero. It felt like it had happened in the blink of an eye, but she wished she had cherished that time more while he was still alive so that she had more of a reason to spend more time with him instead of taking the relationship for granted. This is what kickstarts the journey that Frieren embarks on for the anime. She wants to relive the experiences that she once went through with her party members. She visits the places where she lived through these moments and wants to remember what it was that made her time with Himmel, Heider, and Eisen so special. She does this while developing new connections with new people she meets so as not to make the same mistake again. I think we can take a page out of Frieren's book. The passage of time is a cruel law of nature, and the way it may seem to speed up is the evolutionary law of time. As we grow older, we underestimate the time pressure we had when we were younger, and we like to exaggerate what it is that we are experiencing now since it is the current moment and we can feel it till its fullest. However, we should value the past more and everything that happened during it, whether it's to reminisce and remember, reflect and learn, or simply to enjoy fond memories. Thoroughly fleshing out our past when we recollect it can make us truly remember what our past was like. Like Frieren, this will increase the value of our relationships that we developed during the past, lost at some point, and others that we held on to as if our lives depended on it, because it does. Human connection is a vital part of our lives as social creatures, and being alone can be healing in a sense, but for most, connection can cure our feelings of loneliness that we may experience and the feeling that we may have lost out on when we were younger. Regret is something none of us should have to live with because we should be allowed to do what fulfills us. We can learn a lot from this beautiful anime with slow but realistic storytelling about one of the necessary necessary aspects of the human condition. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like the video, comment below your favorite part of Frieren, and share it to someone who might want to hear what this video says. It's been my pleasure talking about one of my favorite anime this season. Thank you again all for watching, and I'll see all of you next time.